10 years ago, I made a decision that would impact my life greatly. I predicted an anime series wouldn't get licensed. Looking back, I was right, but that decision was to import the entire series on Blu-ray from Japan. And this series was Gujjo-bu. If you're wondering why I'm saying that instead of its translated name as the GJ Club like several others, it's because it makes practically no sense. The name is a pun on good job, where the GJ is Gujjo, which actually means nothing, and bu meaning club. Together it says good job, Gujjo-bu. And if we think about shorthands like these, do we say the letters? Do we pronounce it? Do we say what it means? I think it's based off the era people may have developed it in. Don't quote me research on this, but back in the 2000s, we'd say lol, lamau, raffle, but it eventually evolved, at least from my perspective, to saying each letter as the abbreviation. Like nowadays, we say NT, DM, XD, GG, and many others. We know what that means and what it is communicating, but there are still some that don't sound right. Like GJ. If I saw that, I instantly know it's good job, but saying the letters sounds wrong, like I'm breaking a law. Maybe it's the beginning sounds meshing together that ruins the flow, whereas something like GG is fine because it's repetition. Either way, that is my explanation for the pronunciation of the series. Fine, have it your way. Here's my retrospective on the Good Job Club. Let's begin with the man who created it all. Shin Araki was born in 1968 near Ikebukuro, Tokyo, Japan. During their youth, they would frequently ride their bicycle around the limited area. Their perceived reach beyond the city was unimaginable due to its comfortability. He enjoyed tinkering with his bike alongside machines like cars and computers, which would push him towards a science major in college. However, in his youth, he would read plenty of manga and novels to inspire stories of his own. He would begin writing articles in game magazines, a cross between two of his passions, before eventually writing serialized stories. He would get his first break with Wazer no Monsho, a fantasy adventure series using the RPG system of the same name, following in the trails of Record of Lodoss War and Slayers. It was short-lived, but his first major long-running series would be Stardust Heroes, aka Hoshikuzu Eiyuden, another fantasy adventure series with a prominence of harem. If you look at many of his works, Araki loves harems, some that do it tastefully and some that are not for the faint-hearted like me. But this would set a trend for Araki to do stories in a similar nature, with a harem series set in a fantasy world, whether medieval or science fiction, and then repeat. A myriad of ideas would flourish from his mind, but only a few got published. Araki sent them to multiple publishers, with many rejecting him. It was around this time light novels were beginning to change from the RPG adventure genre to a contemporary story with an eccentric female lead, an onus to Haruhi Suzumiya. Araki struggled to create stories with this in mind, as proposals were a mix of these two generations, until one day editor-in-chief of Gagaga Bunko, Hideki Okami, suggested Araki do a romantic comedy. This moment was profound for Araki as he didn't want to stray from his interests. He compared this moment to Miura telling Ashirogi Muto to draw a gag manga from Bakuman, a task that went against his pride as a writer. Araki said he would mull it over, and Araki hooked him up with an editor and asked him to bring in a few ideas to their initial meeting. Araki brought over 40 different proposals to Isao Gushiken, his new editor, in one sitting. Many of these stories were quite similar and followed Araki's interests. A protagonist with a harem in a different setting, sometimes a school, sometimes another world, sometimes a fantasy epic. Then there were ones with a party of members like old Japanese RPGs, similar to Stardust Heroes. They all had hints of a will-they-won't-they rom-com feel, but none of these met Gushiken's needs to publish as a series. All hope felt lost until a diamond stuck out. A Yonkoma light novel. For those unaware, a Yonkoma is a 4-panel comic strip. They can run in the back of newspapers or as extras in the back of manga volumes, or even be a manga strictly run as 4 panels. The idea of a Yonkoma light novel intrigued him for further explanation from Araki, where he stated each book would consist of 100 2-page stories that follows a group of high schoolers in their club. The club would be the Good Job Club. Gushiken then asked if he could write many stories following this format, which Araki proudly displayed all of his proposals he brought as proof that he had many ideas for that story. With that, Gushiken gave the green light to work with Araki on his new series, but that came with issues. While Araki published books before, some were cult hits while the rest only got a few volumes. So being an author wasn't a sustainable source of income, meaning he had to do side jobs to get by, such as proofreading works or informational writing. This would impact how he would write the story greatly because even though each story was 2 pages, he still needed to submit them to Gujjo-ken for approval. To reduce the number in this process, they changed it so each volume would be 36 4-page stories. Unfortunately, Araki is one who plans ahead, so he plans several traits and references in these small stories to return to in later chapters to add to the comedy or develop the characters. This stems from many of his stories being battle harem comedies and not a short slice-of-life Yonkoma. However, in the world of writing, editors and test readers may disapprove of certain aspects or plot points that force the author to change gears. Gujjo-ken realized this and tried to use this moment to develop Araki's skills to write with adherence for change. With a strict schedule and additional hours of work, Araki was submitting manuscripts just before the deadline, giving Gujjo-ken little time to edit the story, organize commercialization, and work with illustrators. It was a hectic work experience. Not only that, Araki was creating further ideas in case the Good Job Club failed like his other series, since the publishing scene in Japan is a dog-eat-dog world. So, he had a lot on his plate. Thankfully, Gujjo-ken was understanding and approved of many of the stories with very few rewrites and rejections, meaning the Good Job Club could go on sale. Due to this unique style for storytelling, it turned out to be a moderate success. In his handy chart on light novel popularity, he would place it between B and C, where it sold well and was known by readers, placing it above cult classic status. It was popular enough to warrant a spin-off for the Good Job Club Middle School, following the little sisters of the original members and their friends at their own school. However, what would propel it into stardom is its own big announcement. In 2012, wrapped around the Good Job Club Middle School's 7th volume, it was announced the original light novels would be getting an anime adaptation, later revealed to be done by Dogo Kobo, a studio starting to gain traction with their own moe adaptations that would begin to make it a household staple. It just felt right at home with the studio behind it. Of course, the publishers agreed as they made their own announcement video of the staff, not the cast members, specifically the staff like director, character designer, and writer. It ended with the on-air date of January of 2013, which brings us to how I got into it. At the time, I was beginning to feel the wear and tear of seasonal anime, but I still had some on my list. New seasons of Haganai and Minami-ke were on the way, and some series caught my eye like KyoAni's Tamako Market, and the one people praised to be the big hit of the season, Sasami-san at Ganbaranai, but my eyes were set on the release of Love Live! School Idol Project. I was actively following the franchise back in its music and serialized story era, and it was my most anticipated series to watch of the season. Of course, I was also following the Sustain the Industry movement, where fans bought merch to help the dying anime industry. I had some spending money from doing jobs on the side, so I thought I would support a series by importing the Japanese disc release. I mean, I did it before, the world God only knows, but which to decide? I enjoyed the reasonable conclusion of Haganai and the simple but endearing antics of the Minami family, but not enough to spend my money on them, for now. Tamako Market had a fluffy, endearing sense of community, but it didn't wow me. And Sasami-san, I still didn't get the appeal. Then there's Love Live, one I actively watched as it broadcasted and kept getting me excited week after week as these 9 girls struggled and climbed towards their dreams. I was considering it, but then I remembered the Good Job Club. I kept up with it as much as I did Love Live, and I loved seeing all the characters interact with one another, as that is what its entire premise relies on. The kind but aloof Kyoto that tries his best to deal with the teasings of the other members. The energetic and straightforward club president, Mao Amatsuka, that still acts like a child but can be mature for her age. Her younger sister Megumi is ever so polite and motherly that she takes care of the club members oh so well. Then there is Shion Sumeragi, a grandmaster in chess who can be sly for moves both on and off the board. Plus the weirdly enigmatic Japanese-Canadian Hirata Bernstein that is tall and strong but behaves as timid as a cat. Finally, Tamaki Kanazuki is a late addition that can be a slouch but still acts responsibly when necessary. Plus all the side characters like Miss Mori and the Little Sisters expand the antics to a new degree. I made a prediction this series wouldn't be licensed, so I resorted to good old piracy because I was right. For 6 weeks, because Crunchyroll did license it but only released episode 7 and then the other episodes later. Still no disc release though. So it holds a special place in my heart and I wanted to support it. Thus, I have them all. It came with special bonuses like interviews, audio dramas, commentaries, and a collection bonus with a hardcover case and this desk mat that could have seen some better days. But the thing is, many people don't get to see all this stuff unless you import and know Japanese. So, here are some fun facts about the anime production you can share with your friends or quote on encyclopedias, but more importantly I can use to divide up into multiple shorts, since that seems to be what many influencers are doing nowadays. The cat body plush you see frequently throughout the Gujjo-bu Club was originally planned to appear in a few stories. However, after director Fujiwara saw sample sheets of the prop, he wanted to insert it into as many scenes as possible. One of his reasons to support his decision was that the light novels gave off a closed world vibe, where only the Gujjo-bu Club members exist and the visitors come from another dimension. Having the props reused in their club room gave a sense of time passing and being used, so it wasn't only the cat body plush, but other props being shown as well. Keep an eye out for those, and sometimes the cat may be making expressions. In the third ending, Purely Sky, some of the animation was ad-libbed by key animator Enishi Ooshima. This is confirmed by an interview with storyboard artist Atsushi Takayama, who did all 4 endings, where they thought it was funny watching the edits they made. Thankfully, we have the storyboards right here to reinforce this. If you look towards the end, you'll see Takayama planned for the second cat to roll out before regaining its composure for the final pose. Instead, Ooshima did the unthinkable. The cat appears from out of nowhere, but suggests it comes from Kirada's chest, where it then climbs up to do a hip circle around her arm to ultimately unhook the umbrella strap for Kirada to pop it. These last few seconds were Ooshima's doing. According to series writer Hideaki Koyasu, the series was planned to complete all volumes early on due to director Fujiwara's and producer Junosuke Ito's intentions. He was planning on only doing the first year, so he only wrote up to what is episode 6, and expected to be replaced after that, but got the green light to script the entire series. Additionally, they had discussions on following Kishotenketsu that many East Asian stories, especially Yonkoma, abide by. In short, it is a 4-part story structure. It follows similar beats to other story structures in the world, but it is used as a format to be familiar. Instead of following this, Koyasu outlined the story according to what felt appropriate for the characters. However, this doesn't mean Kishotenketsu disappeared entirely. Inklings of the story structure remain present of how Araki wrote the series, such as introducing the characters, then developing the relationships in the club harem, but introducing a twist of little sisters who wish to be part of their own club and a new member in Tamaki to signify the passage of time, before ultimately hinting towards the encroaching graduation. And that concludes our shorts sections, where I gave short stories on a short story in a short story format to publish as shorts. Stories. Many of this information came from my Blu-ray collection with staff interviews. It provides valuable insight into the production of anime alongside the reasoning for each decision. All you had to do was pay 6,000 yen to get this information, per volume. Thankfully, the yen was tanking at the time, so I got it for $40 each. But I wasn't the only one supporting the series, as many fans bought the disc release, slightly under 3,000 for what is reportable. While it wasn't a hit, it did do quite well. In fact, it did absurdly well according to their standards. You see, the series aired only on NTV in Japan. This was when streaming services were beginning to kick off in the country, and NTV was starting its own on-demand service. Since many television stations are localized to prefectures, you would hope one of the stations would broadcast it. Otherwise, it was to stream it online, whether legal or not. Thus, producers cite the Gujjo-bu Club as the reason for a strong subscriber count due to many new followers, making the series one of the most popular on the service. This would lead to them doing a live stream special before the final episode, a 24-hour Gujjo-bu Club marathon to rerun the 11 episodes until the final one premiered. Were you a strong enough member to watch it all the way through? Don't worry if you missed it, because they later published a repeat disc with an endless repeat feature to mirror Endless 8. I think it's around this time I mentioned Araki did write some material for the Haruhi Suzumiya series, making this whole thing come full circle. However, due to the moderate success, it warranted the adaptation of a new anime. While the team did consider doing a second season, they were content with the story they adapted. The publisher thought otherwise, as they tasked Araki with creating 2 more novels, Guru and Lost Time, both of which would be adapted into the Gujjo-bu Club Guru OVA. An original production that celebrates the series by giving fans an hour-long special. Unfortunately, it remains unlicensed to this day. The novel Guru has the club go to a hot spring, but the OVA has them go to New York instead. I mean, it's very scenic, and they changed the opening to reflect this. Wait, is that a poster for Shrek 2? Arguably the best Shrek film? Man, the staff sure knows what's up. This is the first half of the OVA and sets up the second half, covering Lost Time, where they visit the club room at night. It's quite an interesting approach given the staff's initial conception of it being a closed world story, and displaying stuff outside of the closed world as if there are other things going on in this universe. At the time, the Gujjo-bu Club was Araki's most popular work, meaning it got many spin-offs. Like, a lot. The first being the Gujjo-bu Club Middle School Club, which follows the young siblings of the main characters. Some we met in the series already, most infamously the little sisters, but we also got Shion's apprentice who sees her as an older sister called Jin Suo, and then his friend who joins the club is Kenta Shibui. Then there is Komori, a relative to Miss Mori, the Yamatsuka's maid, and Sayoko Kotesashi, a popular girl who loves Kenta but is rejected by him. These characters were closely related to the original club members, and their story ended around a similar time as them. In fact, the Lost Time epilogue featured both sets of club members, but the OVA only features the little sisters for their Guru portion. Then there is Good Eater. It is a reimagined setting of the characters trying to find good food in a fantasy world, with each character following a different trope, such as hero, leader, assassin, demon king, knight, and angel. Finally, the most recent one is the KB Club. The KB stands for Keibon, which is light novels, where the characters write those in a college club. It has Kyoto reimagine his friends in different forms, such as Shion being a naughty fanfic writer and Mao loving shonen action stories. So it isn't really the same story, but it is. It's Kyoto from the Gujjo-bu Club imagining his friends in the KB Club who write different stories together, but also write the Gujjo-bu Club and Good Eater stories as a meta-breaking narrative of real-life fictionalized. If you understood what I just said, congratulations, because I didn't. Basically, Araki created a multiverse club. Before we talk about that though, there's one other thing. Araki planned a fourth entry and possible sequel with the original Gujjo-bu Club. Known in Japanese as Ganso Gujjo-bu, it follows Kyoko, Tama's friend who later joined the Gujjo-bu Club towards the end and is now club president in her final year. 3 new prospective members join to widen their horizons as young children entering an adult world. Kyota, a laid-back boy that is described as not boyish. Hime, a tsundere bully that acts without thinking and is close friends with the final member, Toka, an idealized lady that is quiet and shy but exhibits no self-confidence. Then the 3 little sisters from the original members will make appearances to oppose the characters with the real Gujjo-bu Club, believing they have authority to carry on the torch from middle school and blood relations to the original members. Araki's plan was to publish this in a weekly newspaper with 50 chapters each year, and then compiling those into volumes with additional stories as bonuses, totaling over 100 per year. The idea was published back in 2016, so it seemed to stop there, but the Gujjo-bu Club stories were published in newspapers around this time as Gujjo-bu Club Weekly. Maybe they used that as a test run, but it didn't gain traction after that, so the idea fell apart. Strangely, the multiverse doesn't stop there because Araki cared deeply for many of his stories that were cancelled. Thus, he used this opportunity to create crossovers with the Gujjo-bu Club. Characters from Cheerful Family Plan, Manager Hanaji, Is That Not Good?, and It's As Simple as a Job as Kissing either appear in chapters or reference the school they attend. While this can be chalked up to slight nods to other works or fun one-off chapters to reuse characters in another story, in my mind it may be more. I find it hilarious to think that these other stories involving magical powers, destructive fights, and the daily life of an erotic manga shop owner happen within the same universe as something as mundane as the Gujjo-bu Club, as if they are the background characters in a story that knows nothing of this other world in contemporary Japan. But that may explain some of the weird things that happen, such as Kyoto's so-called ears and Seiro's ability to telepathically snipe at Kyoto. Back in 2020, I published a video for Pause and Select's Novid event. It summarized the events of the series and the connection to the OVA for an overall message of life is short, so make the best of it, like the characters. However, what you may not know is what happened behind the scenes. While the brevity of life is an overall theme, the other theme was about space, more specifically, those sacred to us. Originally, I planned the first lines to be 4 words, 4 lines, and 4 frames, to expand towards the 3rd dimension. I tried fiddling with my video editor to create a cube effect for the scene, but it was difficult to do. So I edited rotating shots and a zoom in of the scenes in a white void to communicate a 3rd dimension. This would relate to the Gujjo-bu Club room being a space special to the members, specifically Mao in the OVA. It's to say, no matter what type of space it is, people can derive meaning from it. And when I say type, I mean the numeral dimensions, because the script was planned to be 4 pages long, just like a normal chapter in the light novel. I used a limited amount of space to communicate as much information as I could, mirroring Araki. In fact, the anime production staff said it was difficult to adapt the work because Araki used so few words to describe the scenes. For instance, while some chapters used identifiers like holidays or the weather, many of the chapters followed one after another around a similar premise. The anime staff spaced this out, such as with using the hairbrushing scenes in different episodes. Thus, the ability to communicate with little verbiage is both a gift and a curse. Then there is the comment from the director that the club room is its own world separate from anything else, creating said space to be sacred. The way the series manifests itself in a multitude of dimensions is inspiring. With a condensed space, it gives room for imagination and creativity, and with a larger area, it breathes life into the characters and the story. But there are still limits to these dimensions. It is within these dimensions that brings us to a 4th dimension, time. 10 years later is a series I thought of to celebrate the series that may be pushed to the wayside or forgotten in some form. I wanted to support the series both financially and emotionally, as time will keep moving forward. In the Gujjo-bu Club, time can be seen as an enemy, especially with Mao. She can be immature and pretend to be a child at times, yet that doesn't push aside the fact she'll need to enter the adult world, which in turn means leaving behind the club. The memories of joyous laughter and childish antics will always be within the club room, but the fear of the club disappearing is paramount, as if to say those feelings don't matter or they weren't real in the first place. That what you experience is nothing more than lost time, which is why it ends with the theme that the Gujjo-bu Club will carry on forever and the members' bonds are eternal, surpassing that space. The Gujjo-bu Club is something that continues to break boundaries, but it makes me wonder how that applies to the real life. The notion that the Gujjo-bu Club is full of students doing whatever they want and not contributing to society will be a familiar tone to others. That what we are doing is not important enough because it has nothing of value. Whether it be creating art, playing video games, reading books, or watching an 8-hour video essay, or however long this video will be, there will be people downplaying these activities no matter where you go. This won't be important in the larger scheme of things. As a matter of fact, according to the Gujjo-bu Club, they do matter because it is you who holds value in them. It shouldn't matter if you are doing something out of enjoyment or passion or necessity, because at the end it will help you grow. Shin Araki has been writing for over 30 years, where most of his ideas were discarded, but he kept coming back with more. Araki kept refining his craft and gaining new assets, all while tinkering with machines, playing video games, and working a strenuous shift. The Gujjo-bu Club is a message to keep doing what you love because you are doing a good job, even if our time is short on this planet, because our impact will be eternal. Back in September, I thought of returning with a bunch of videos to keep the train moving, but life had other plans. There was a huge ice storm and my mom slipped and broke her hip. She's fine now for the time being, but the fear of losing her was worrisome, and taking care of her now while still young is heart-wrenching to endure. Right now, she is worried of dying because there are statistics saying 1 in 3 people die within 6 months of getting a hip fracture. So she's pushing herself to get better faster to live life how she wants and surpass that statistic. I am hopeful that she can, because my uncle, her brother, suffered one 5 years ago and overcame that as well, and he is helping us through this process. But it is making me wonder about how much she impacted me or others. Shortly after this, I watched A Christmas Story Christmas, the legitimate sequel to the original, and it's about Ralphie writing an obituary for his dad during the holiday season. Quick recommendation: don't watch something that relates to a traumatic experience you're currently going through unless you want to be emotionally destroyed. But the whole issue is around not being able to summarize his father's life in a few words that are seen in most obituaries, due to the profound impact the old man had on him and their community. This may appear antithetical to Araki writing the novels in a short form, but he originally planned for it to be 2 pages instead of 4, giving it more detail in return. But that isn't the point of this section, as it's about the impact. Just as much as the old man impacted Ralphie, my mom impacted me, but so did the story of the Gujjo-bu Club. This may sound cringy, but one day, a thought crossed my mind that there will be people who have never experienced the Gujjo-bu Club. The fact it still isn't licensed and may vanish off Crunchyroll doesn't help relieve that feeling. Not just the Gujjo-bu Club, but other media like Myself Yourself, Chemical Deluxe, Siren, Iris Online, and many, many more. They will probably be nothing in centuries from now, except a listing on a Wikipedia page. I broke down crying about this thought because not only did it tug on the strings fearing my own existential death, but that they will fall into the obscurity of nothingness. and I may as well. All of these series impacted me where I think about and engage with them regularly. They moved me with their words and actions just as much as people in real life. Pause and Select and Caribou-kun reacted to my video for Novid, and they may not know it, but their feedback was immense enough to keep me moving forward, just as much as Araki. If you look on his blog or Twitter, you'll see people commenting how his work inspired them to become writers, whether it be posting online, self-publishing, or going through the same editing proposal process as him. They did what they wanted because of said impact. Araki even shared some stories from these readers, some even following in the Yonkoma light novel style he pioneered. Plus, we can't forget the anime staff, who hold a yearly gathering with fans to celebrate the series. Due to recent worldwide events, they have been unable to hold one recently, but hope to have it this spring for the 10th anniversary. The Gujjo-bu Club is important to many, and the impact it is leaving is inconceivable. I hope when we look back on things as we fade away, we can be proud of the legacy we have left and say, I did a good job. Thank you very much for watching this video on the Gujjo-bu Club. I hope you all enjoyed it. This was a mix of my editing style from the past and what I'm doing currently just to get back into the groove of things, so I hope you can understand that. All of my resources and sources and assets and everything will be down in the description below or in a separate Google Doc depending on if I go over the character limit or not. We'll see. Besides that, please check out all the people I referenced, such as Pause and Select, Caribou-kun /Shabes, and MK the Rot. They'll be down below as well. As for what the future will bring, who knows? I do have some ideas planned, and I'll give you a hint. Brothers and sisters. We'll see what that means, hopefully soon. Anyway, thank you once again for watching. Thank you for your support. I wish you all the best. I hope you all have a lovely day. I'll see you in the next one. Poof, poof.